I heard the wine glass shatter before I heard my mother scream my name. But by then, I was already walking off the stage, microphone still hot in my hand, and 200 guests sitting in absolute silence behind me. My sister's $85,000 wedding reception, the one I wasn't even supposed to speak at, had just become mine. Let me back up. My name is Amanda, and for 28 years, I was the ugly one. Not my words. Theirs. My parents never said it directly to my face, not in those exact terms, but they didn't have to. It was in every comparison, every family photo where I was asked to stand in the back, every birthday dinner where my younger sister Melissa got the spotlight while I got a grocery store cake with the wrong name spelled in frosting. When Melissa turned 16, they threw her a garden party with a live band and 200 guests. When I turned 16, my mom handed me a card with $50 inside and said, "Don't spend it all in one place." We grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, in one of those big historic homes that looks like money from the outside. And we had it. My father owned a commercial real estate firm. My mother came from old Charleston money. They were the kind of people who measured worth in appearances, in who you knew, in how you photographed. Melissa photographed beautifully. I didn't. She had my mother's blonde hair and delicate features. I had my father's broad shoulders and his nose, which my mother once described at a dinner party as unfortunate but fixable if Amanda ever cared about herself. I was 12 when she said that. The guests laughed politely. I excused myself and cried in the bathroom for an hour. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. You're not alone in this. Melissa and I shared a bathroom growing up. Her side had a makeup vanity our parents installed for her 14th birthday, custom shelving, and a ring light. My side had a towel rack. When she graduated high school, they bought her a brand new BMW. When I graduated, with honors, by the way, they gave me the keys to our old Honda Civic and said I should be grateful they kept it running. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I'd prove my worth differently. I went to college on a partial scholarship, worked 2 jobs, graduated with a degree in marketing, and landed a job at a small firm in Atlanta. I was proud of myself. My parents came to my graduation. They took one photo, left before the reception, and spent the entire drive home talking about Melissa's new internship at a friend's gallery. She'd dropped out of college twice. But she was beautiful, so it didn't matter. 3 years ago, Melissa got engaged. His name was Brendan. He worked in finance, drove a Tesla, and had a family beach house on Kiowa Island. My parents loved him. More importantly, he came from money, and that meant Melissa's wedding could be the event my mother had been dreaming about since Melissa was born. I was living in Atlanta when my mother called to tell me the news. "We're so happy," she gushed. "Brendan's family is wonderful. This is going to be the wedding of the year, Amanda. You'll be there, of course." Of course. She didn't ask if I wanted to be a bridesmaid. She just assumed I'd show up, sit quietly, and watch my sister live the life I'd never have. And I did. For a while. The wedding planning started immediately. My mother called me once a month with updates. The venue, a historic plantation estate outside Charleston. The flowers, imported peonies and garden roses. The dress, custom Vera Wang. The guest list, 300 people. I listened. I said congratulations. I asked polite questions. Then she told me the budget. $85,000, she said, like it was nothing. Your father and I are covering everything. Melissa deserves the best. I was quiet for a long time. That's amazing, Mom, I finally said. I didn't mention that when I'd gotten engaged 2 years earlier to my boyfriend of 4 years, they'd offered me $3,000 and said I should keep it small. I didn't mention that I'd called off that engagement 6 months later because he cheated, and my mother's only response was, "Well, maybe it's for the best." You're not exactly easy to love, Amanda. I didn't mention any of it. I just said congratulations and hung up. 6 months before the wedding, Melissa invited me to her final dress fitting. I drove down from Atlanta on a Saturday morning. My mother, Melissa, and two of Melissa's friends were already at the bridal boutique when I arrived. They were drinking champagne. Nobody offered me a glass. Melissa came out in her dress, and I'll admit, she looked stunning. Everyone cried. Everyone took photos. My mother kept saying, "My beautiful girl. My perfect, beautiful girl." Then Melissa looked at me. "What do you think, Amanda?" I smiled. "You look gorgeous." She tilted her head. "You could try, you know. Makeup, a good haircut, maybe some Botox. You'd be surprised what a little effort could do." The room went silent. Then my mother laughed. "Melissa, stop," she said, but she was smiling. "Amanda knows we're joking." I set my purse down on the chair, walked out of the boutique, got in my car, and drove back to Atlanta. Nobody called to apologize. 2 months before the wedding, I got a promotion. Senior Marketing Manager. A 30% raise. My own team. I was thrilled. I called my parents to tell them the news. My father answered. I told him everything. He said, "That's great, Amanda. Listen, can you call back later? We're in the middle of the final tasting for Melissa's reception menu." He hung up before I could respond. That night, I sat in my apartment with a bottle of wine and my laptop, and I did something I hadn't done in years. I let myself get angry. Not sad. Not disappointed. Angry. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg for their love anymore. I wasn't going to shrink myself to make Melissa shine. I wasn't going to sit quietly at the edge of her wedding and pretend this was normal. I was going to tell the truth. 8. The plan. I spent the next 8 weeks writing. Not a toast. A speech. I wrote about every birthday they forgot. Every cruel comment disguised as a joke. Every time they chose Melissa over me and pretended it was fair. I wrote about the BMW versus the Civic, the $85,000 wedding versus the $3,000 offer, the makeup vanity versus the towel rack. I wrote it all down. Then I edited it. I made it clean, factual, and undeniable. I removed anything that sounded bitter and replaced it with dates, numbers, and direct quotes. I made it sound like a documentary. I practiced it 40 times in my apartment until I could recite it without shaking. Then I waited. If you're wondering what I said, stay with me. The next part is where everything changed. The wedding was beautiful. Melissa looked like a princess. The venue was breathtaking. The ceremony was flawless. I sat in the 4th row, wore a beige dress my mother had picked out for me, and smiled for photos when asked. At the reception, I sat at a table in the back with distant cousins I'd never met. Melissa and Brendan had their first dance. My father gave a toast about how proud he was of his perfect daughter. My mother cried happy tears. Then the DJ announced it was time for open toasts. My mother stood up. She spoke for 5 minutes about Melissa's beauty, grace, and bright future. She didn't mention me once. Brendan's best man went next. Then Melissa's college roommate. Then I stood up. My mother's face went pale. She whispered something to my father. He shook his head, confused. I walked to the front, took the microphone from the DJ, and smiled at the room. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda, Melissa's older sister. I wasn't supposed to speak today. Nobody asked me to. But I thought it was important to share a few things about growing up with Melissa, since so many of you have heard about her incredible life. I paused. The room was silent. When Melissa turned 16, our parents threw her a garden party with a live band and 200 guests. It cost about $12,000. When I turned 16, I got a card with $50. When Melissa graduated high school, she got a brand new BMW. I got a 12-year-old Honda Civic. When Melissa got engaged, our parents offered to pay for her entire wedding. $85,000. When I got engaged, they offered me $3,000 and told me to keep it small. My mother stood up. Amanda, stop this. I kept going. When I was 12, my mother told a room full of dinner guests that my nose was unfortunate but fixable if I ever cared about myself. When I got promoted to senior marketing manager 2 months ago, my father hung up on me because he was busy with Melissa's reception menu tasting. And 2 months ago, at her final dress fitting, Melissa told me I should try Botox because a little effort might help. The room was frozen. I'm not saying this to ruin anyone's day. I'm saying it because for 28 years, I've been told that I'm not enough. That I'm the ugly one. The disappointing one. The one who doesn't deserve attention, or love, or even basic respect. And I believed it. I spent my entire life trying to earn what Melissa got for free. I looked directly at my parents. But I'm done. I'm done apologizing for existing. I'm done pretending this is normal. And I'm done letting you treat me like I'm worth less than her. I set the microphone down on the table. The room was silent. Then I walked out. My phone exploded within an hour. Texts from cousins, family friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some were supportive. Some were horrified. My mother called 14 times. I didn't answer. My father sent one text, "You've embarrassed this family. Don't contact us." I blocked their numbers. Melissa sent me an email 3 days later. It was short. I didn't know it was that bad. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. A week later, my aunt, my father's sister, called me. She was the only one who'd reached out with genuine concern. I always knew they treated you differently, she said. But I didn't realize how cruel it was. I'm proud of you for saying something. It was the first time anyone in my family had said they were proud of me. My parents didn't speak to me for 6 months. Melissa reached out twice more. The second time, she asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed. We met at a cafe in Atlanta. She looked tired. I've been thinking about what you said, she started. And you're right. They've always treated you differently. I didn't want to see it. You benefited from it, I said. She nodded. I did. And I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. But it was something. She told me that after the wedding, several guests had confronted my parents. My mother's bridge club stopped inviting her to events. My father's business partner made a comment about how you treat family. They were humiliated. And for the first time in my life, they were the ones being judged. I didn't reconcile with my parents. Not fully. 8 months after the wedding, my mother sent me a letter. It was 2 pages long, handwritten, and mostly defensive. She said I'd misunderstood their intentions, that they'd only wanted the best for both of us, and that I'd hurt Melissa on her special day. She didn't apologize. I wrote back. One sentence. I didn't misunderstand. I just finally said it out loud. I never heard from her again. Melissa and I talk occasionally now. It's not close, but it's civil. She's trying, in her own way, to understand what I went through. I appreciate that. But I don't need her approval anymore. I don't need theirs. Here's what I learned. You can't make people love you the way you deserve. You can't fix a family that's been broken for decades with one conversation. And you can't spend your life shrinking yourself to make someone else comfortable. But you can tell the truth. You can set boundaries. You can walk away. And you can rebuild your life around people who see your worth without you having to beg for it. I'm 30 now. I have a career I'm proud of, friends who actually show up, and a life that's mine. I'm not the ugly one. I'm not the disappointing one. I'm just Amanda. And that's enough. If this story hit home, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me if you've ever had to stand up to family. I read every single one. Because the truth is, a lot of us are taught that family is everything. That you owe them loyalty no matter what. But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth, even when it costs you everything. Even when it costs you them.